gotta write you a kite. I gotta keep it real. All right, all right. We are live here on another great Monday. Thank you for joining me at the Gamer Librarian Podcast. We are on episode 102, and 101 might also be out. And then there's our first live episode, episode 100. All of that is really, really cool. And we have going on for a good while. It has been a very intriguing ride so far, just for the podcast. Now, obviously, we could be doing a little better with like cerebral screens and all this other stuff, but trying the live recording is going to be interesting. And time is of the essence, right? We don't have a lot of specific time, so we try to keep the episodes about an hour or so in length. And we just talk about things that are going on within the week, usually things I'm playing, games, reading, and then all kinds of video game news and everything in between that along those lines. And obviously, we're keeping up with certain TV shows and all kinds of stuff. So I don't know if you guys like it, subscribe, leave a comment what you think I should be diving into next. What do you think about what we're currently doing? Things like the Metal Gear series playthrough, or things like mangas or video game news, all kinds of stuff. It's been insane lately. There's been a lot of hype around a lot of titles and news that's been announced lately. Now, I think we just get into it, right? Because we got it recording and everything else, and it could just, go online. That's pretty much it, right? The episode just uploads once I go live, and that's pretty much it. Now, for Nintendo, this is something that is pretty big. I think this is a pretty big topic, is what Nintendo is doing in terms of their game lineup and their Nintendo Switch 2 just lineup in general, because it's safe to say the Switch 1 is done. There's no titles for the Switch 1 unless they're like other titles that are just third party, can be played on both consoles type deal. If it's Nintendo first party, for sure, it's going to be Switch 1. Like, never not gonna be on the Switch 1, just gonna be Switch 2 only, and that's just it, just only the Switch 2. Now, a lot of these games we've been talking about for a good long bit, but they are now showing their only, like, new mainline title video game for any of their series now. Like, we don't have news on anything except for Metroid Prime. Metroid Prime is the latest one in terms of their first party games, and then Yoshi's Story just seems like a pretty decent puzzler game, and then Fire Emblem, which I don't know, this Fire Emblem seemed like it pushes the boundaries, not from I've seen, and I haven't really ever finished a Fire Emblem game, so I can't even say what differentiates those kind of games, but it seems that they keep their cards very, very close to the chest with titles, things that are being announced. Like, we're not even getting things like cinematic trailers or anything like that for them anymore. We're getting things just like real straightforward gameplay and concept. Maybe these like cinematics sprinkled around, cutscenes, stuff like that. But from what we've seen so far, it's just not real straightforward gameplay for a lot of these things. Now, Metroid Prime had a decent amount of that, and this is like the latest game that we've seen. There's no other Nintendo game that pretty much has been showcased that looks any different or anything else. Like, Fire Emblem looks the same. Yoshi's Island still looks the same as it has. Prime 4 seems to be at least a new iteration of this franchise, which seemed to have been the case with something like Metroid Dread in that same vein. And now here we are with the not third, first person type Metroid game, the fourth in the series, Prime, and it has some new features. It has a very noticeable open type world, which is, I wouldn't say new-ish to them. I haven't played all the Metroid games, but this is definitely like a step up considering, Breath of the Wild, Mario, Donkey Kong, all those games are relatively open world. Mario Kart, like, of course, but Prime, for a Metroidvania being what it is, open world is very, very crazy. The motorbike is gonna be definitely something. Now, I don't find that negative. I think those are all cool aspects. Obviously, the motorbike is just gonna be your fast travel mobility, maybe even combat type mobile, which would be cool. But what really intrigues me is whether or not it's gonna be used as, like, the fast traveling, or whether or not it's gonna be crucial to the combat, like boss battles and things like that. Things like the morph ball is something that's pretty, you know, useful for some bosses in Metroid games. So something like the little dirt bike thing that they have is gonna be really sick. Using it for traversal in the, like, overworld, stuff like that. Maybe things like trick shots or things like time trials, they'll probably just have things like that sprinkled around, which is pretty much just how you unlock certain other small upgrades, like your missile capacity, or maybe it's like speed, or shield capacity, whatever. Things like that is probably just, obvious gonna happen. The art style is something that very much turns me off. I just think that the game doesn't look as good as something like Bonanza looks great, Odyssey, Breath of the Wild. Like, a lot of these games look very great and vibrant and polished. Pokemon looks like ass. The newest Pokemons, compared to what I would expect and what we've seen before, this Metroid Prime looks worse than Pokemon. It's just insane. It's insane. So, Metroid Prime comes out December 4th. That's an insane release date. Like, that's their, like, closest game that can be announcing, and it's their largest title for just anything that we've seen in the future. Now, here's the thing. Game Awards is also, like, around that time, and the only other real times that we see Super Smash Bros. Stuff has been Nintendo Directs, or specifically the Game Awards. Like, that's been the 2. I think maybe we saw them at certain, E3 type timelines, just Nintendo related, from their previous announcements all those years ago. But Smash Bros. Was absent this direct, and that's something that's just actually insane, that their flagship game, like, I would say it's their flagship game, because if you're an old, like, gamer from, I would say, like, 1 generation to the next, Nintendo Switch 1 to 2, and then just Wii to Switch, or the Wii U to Switch, and then the DS to the Wii U, and the Wii U, the Wii, the GameCube. I think that what brings a lot of people back to main Nintendo hardware, if you're an adult, is Smash Bros. Is just that kind of vibe of a game, it being the amalgamation of gaming that it is. Insane. And it's crazy to think that they've gonna let the Switch maybe go a whole year of its life cycle, the Switch 2's life cycle, without Nintendo Super Smash Bros. Content, which is insane to me. Which, obviously, maybe they're just gonna keep it for the later on the back end, but from the get go, it would have been amazing just to have that from the start. I think they would have secured far more kind of sales, and obviously maybe demand and stuff like that met certain, you know, criteria there for how it was launched. But no Smash Bros. Is relatively insane, and this is coming off of the Donkey Kong Bonanza DLC that looks like just garbage. I think that's insane what the DK Island and, Emerald Rush DLCs are. The $20 for, like, timed speedrun type mode is quite a lot, and from what I've seen or heard from the DK Island stuff, it's not even like a full level with, like, the collectible stuff. It's more just like a viewing kinda walk around space. I don't know if you can actually destroy things, but that would be that as far as I know, that would be pretty cool. But I've heard it to be described as things like it should have been, to the mode you unlocked when you 100% the game. That would have been insane. But $20 for something like this, no. I mean, I paid full price for Donkey Kong Bonanza. I'm not gonna pay full price for that DLC. That's not even looking appealing in any kind of way. Now, there is a new Pokemon game that we will talk about here because I think it looks horrendous. It's where Ditto turns into a small child. Like, we need to just get away from that, and then you play as it, and, like, you're doing, like, a farming sim game. I'm not about that. That seems really weird. Just, playing as a Pokemon, pretending to be a human being. That seems crazy. So, it was Nintendo's anniversary for Super Mario 40th anniversary, which was insane, is that no new Mario game. Like, no new Mario game, but we're doing a Mario movie, and the first movie seemed it was, like, relatively received super, super well, and it kinda left on the cliffhanger that there would be a sequel. I didn't think we'd get a sequel this soon, like, not even close, to be honest, I did not, and it's based on Mario Galaxy, then we got Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 coming back in, hopefully not it's not a timed release, which, I'm seeing it right here, is that it's not a timed release for the Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 releases like the 3D Mario games were, the 64 Sunshine, and I think it was the first Galaxy. Is that what it is? Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. You see, that's not really a good, like, bundle in my opinion. Damn, that's actually insane how that I didn't even notice that, like, it's just the 2 Mario games, like, the 2 Galaxy games. That's not even huh. This wow. So anyway, there's also the movie, which looks good, and then we talked about it. I think I mentioned like briefly was Yoshi's Island Mysterious Book. Looks cool. I'm surprised that there's no co-op. I kind of feel like co-op would be something that they would try to implement and then just make it, worthwhile for a more, larger audience to try and get into and play together. Maybe that's a feature they're going to show off later. They just didn't want to show us off now. The Virtual Boy has made a return. It's coming in like a physical release, and I guess you can get like a cardboard version as well. Only available to your Switch Online expansion pass members and things like that. That's insane. Gonna completely skip out on that. I'm not really super intrigued on that. And then there's Pokemon Legends ZA. This is something that's I'm not necessarily super into. We're gonna keep up on it for the Switch, but there's other games that we're gonna be talking about getting into coming soon. Now, DLC for Super Mario Wonder did seem relatively cool. Excited about that. They do Mario Tennis. Yeah, big, big stuff for Mario's 40th anniversary. Legend of Zelda Hyrule Warriors. I'm waiting on a collection for that. And then Hades is something that we're gonna try and beat the first game before we even look at the sequel. Now the Switch is doing pretty good. Mm, which is insane. And then there's Dragon Quest. Yeah, all kinds of games were announced and shown off. Fatal Frame, which is pretty cool, Danganronpa. So, it's definitely something to see that these games are showcased in those matches. Now, obviously, there's Kirby Air Riders. Kirby Air Riders is something that was never expected, especially from its original creator, nonetheless. Um, very, very insane. We can obviously speculate that there's never be no Smash news until Kirby is fully done with, or at least, like, just out in the public's hands. That's what I will speculate, and then we're just gonna get Smash Ultimate more content. That's literally all it's gonna be, more Smash Ultimate content. They should not make a new game, there's no reason to. We're getting a lot of evidence of these games getting expansions for these large amounts of money that they're getting, and these expansions are almost a fraction. Sometimes they're not even worth it, like the Bonanza one. That's definitely really a great example, but I think it's insane to see that this Nintendo Direct didn't even, like, hint or talk about or celebrate Smash. Like, there hasn't been anything on Smash since Sora came out, and then nothing. There was an announcement that there'd be no more content and things like that, and it's just one of those things where I think th that type of game series will forever be, like, the thing that keeps gaming going in a large way, in a massive way. That global conglomerate IP stuff, I would like to see that the competition keeps going, and we see things like we've already had things like Shovel Knight. Hollow Knight would be insane to get added into Smash Brothers, and then it would just be great to see all kinds of things. Like, Halo has celebrated its Halo reaches 15th anniversary, and that came out in 2010, Halo Reach. I remember going to that game stop at midnight release for that game, which is insane. Well, that was so long ago. So shout out to Halo. It's not the same anymore, but Halo Reach you can still play, I think, with Master Chief Collection, which is super, super sick. There is one smaller bit of news we talk about. Mars Attracts is a early access game that allows you to be in the Mars attack universe and, like, farm humans on some base or something like that. Super insane. Came out today. I'm not necessarily sure, but it's cool, cool, cool. So I think it's safe to say that there's no real Nintendo news until Super Smash Bros. Comes out. That's what I just think that this not gonna be any type of real Nintendo, like, relevancy to us until obviously Metroid Prime and then Smash Bros. Like, Game Awards might be the time if there was even, like, something from Nintendo, but probably until Sakurai come with this game. So until then, Nintendo Switch is literally only useful for one game I know. Only useful for one game, and that is Silksong. Silksong is a long fucking game. Long. Extremely long. It has been crazy to think that this game would be what it is. It's long with its runbacks, it's long with its amount of content compared to the original game. There's so much in terms of its mobility that you have. It's definitely like a step up. Is this game of the year? I don't think so. I think it still goes to Expedition 33. I think 33 being a brand new RPG, just to define it in terms of that way. It's not a Metroidvania, but it's just a brand new IP itself in an RPG, format. Silksong is just a DLC that was made into a game, or it's just basically a sequel now. Literally all it is. And then we have Night Rain. Night Rain had a massive, massive update that apparently adds in a big difficulty mode, and that adds in a good amount of replayability to the game. Now, I would like to see bosses and that content stuff. Now, I don't think that needs to be paid, you know? I definitely think that, like, for the amount of time and, kind of effort that's taken into that game, I just think the content should be updated, not just paid for, because it just kind of feels already bare bones in the initial run, and now with this update, it's just kinda gonna feel definitely like a fresh coat of paint, and now it's like, okay, now they're gonna do the DLC, like, announcement probably at Game Awards, obviously. I haven't got a chance to play it. Might do runs once we're done with work before we run our Elder Scrolls game, which we've been talking about very much over the last few forever. And, Silksong, I'm probably about 60% with everything. I trying to go through all of the area that I can unlock before I go and beat I guess it's the Act 2 final boss. It's the 2 mechanic bugs that you fight at once. Like, they attack symmetrically, kind of, and then they attack individually. That's about it. Trying to do what I can before I fight them, level up technically. And then when this game is done, we will be doing only Metal Gear Solid 3. Like, it's definitely a series that I wanna be over with now, especially now that I'm so far to the end. And by end, I mean I've always dreamt of playing Metal Gear Solid 4 because that game looked fun. It looked cool. It was the game that was most advertised around my age of, like, following video game news and stuff like that, and I never had a PS3. That was just the way it is, and hopefully, now this is my guess, Metal Gear Solid Master Collection will be announced at Game Awards. That's what I think. The second one, second volume, it'll probably have Metal Gear 4 and 5. I think that it should certainly have 5 just included. Like, if you wanna really ensure that people who haven't played the Metal Gear games are gonna play the Metal Gear games in some fashion, if they haven't already bought the Master Volume Collection 1, you gotta include 5 because they're not gonna remaster it, and it's relatively old compared it was a PS4 game. It's still pretty old. It never got a next gen upgrade from what I know. That's basically just it. And as a new coming Metal Gear franchise, I'm not really gonna judge what should be or shouldn't be done for the Metal Gear games, but it's definitely something that, like, I don't wanna pay a full price for, you know, individually if I'm gonna have to buy another bundle. I just wanna have 5 included, 4 or 5, and then probably whatever the mobile, like, PSP spin-off games were that they never really announced. It's probably gonna be those just included, and that's gonna be it. Those gonna be big. When I beat Metal Gear Solid 3, I will pirate 4 if the volume collection is not out, and then I will maybe buy Metal Gear Solid 5 individually. That just might have to be what it is, because I could just borrow it from a friend or, disc copy or something like that, because it's very recent. But Metal Gear was just one of those game series that I never particularly got into because they were much slower stealth-based games, and when I tried them out, it was just like, "Nah, they're not for me." And it wasn't until, like, I got onto the internet and with, like, Metal Gear Vengeance, where it was like, "Oh, this game is pretty memey, it's referential, it has, like, really cool, like, science fiction stuff outside of just, oh, mech, you know, stealth warfare, whatever." That's what Metal Gear is definitely one of those killer gaming series that at the time seemed like it was at the top of the world, and now it just seems like one of those ones where it's like, you should enjoy it if it looks intriguing to you, because there's so much out there that, like, you could enjoy, from Revengeance to stealth games to everything else. Insane. Doing the Metal Gear Volume 1 collection has been a very, very fun experience. We've been trying to get through that series as long as we could. Pretty cool to stretch it out this long, instead of just plowing through it. But, it's, I wanna enjoy those games, it's gonna have to come through some games that I've been expecting to play much longer, like Silksong is just basically how it is. But then October's coming around, so hopefully we can finish Metal Gear Solid 3 and Silksong before September ends. Long shot. Silksong will take some, finessing to do. It's gonna take some time. But Metal Gear Solid 3, when that's over, October is gonna be full of 2 horror games. I think Silent Hill F might be a November release. I could be wrong on that. I just might be. But Chrono Trigger Dawn is out, and this game is very intriguing on the Switch. I might even get it on the Switch if everything else goes well. So we'll see. And then Borderlands 4 is something that is very intriguing to me because it got an 8 on IGN, which is insane. So that might be a game that we talk about in the future here on the podcast. I've been saying it forever. I think that the Borderlands series should be a MMO. It should be an MMO. It should be something where like the vault or the raids and there's all kinds of stuff like in between. I've been very intrigued with Borderlands 4 and how it's been talked about lately and kind of shown off. So that might be a game that we get into in the future. But we talk about manga here, and there is an episode of I didn't mean to say episode, but there is a manga that we've been talking about for extremely long time, and that's One Piece. One Piece is one of those pillars of anime and manga that I think that when this ends, it's going to be, you know, one of the greatest ends for anime. Like we don't have any more of those long standing anime shows anymore, right? I mean, obviously Super still has to be adapted, and other than that, everything else is pretty much done. That I think a large amount of people care about. The people that make these genres very important, these medium and formats. One Piece is just one of those ones where it's like anime is not going to be the same with the whether or not it gets an actual ending or it just ends because it happens a lot. It's kind of the weird commonality that happens along manga and maybe other creators as well is where you do something for so long, it's obviously going to come to a natural end, and we get things where like it's carried on with like Berserk. Berserk is one of those ones where like you can definitely notice that it might not have the same type of pacing because I'm gonna say it, 383 has a very different vibe compared to any of the other types of chapters, and it's just that there's not much talked about. I mean, I guess they're not really gonna go too much into expanding lore just to keep out of, like, continuity sake, but with this chapter, it was just a lot of cool or not anything super extravagant that we've seen much better before, of course, but this one was just more like a it felt like a weird bridge chapter, and for some mangas where we get chapters, like even though we wait, like, 3 plus months, we get 3 chapters of certain types of, varying degrees. I'm gonna say that, Black Clover is the example I'm thinking of, but Berserk takes a long time, has always taken a long time between these releases, and sometimes you think about, you know, is it really worth, like, doing all this so quickly? I mean, how much do you really have? You could just outline it all and just put it all out at once. Just do all the over big pieces, but they're doing the chapters and things like that. I saw that they have a part of the One Piece series printed in one massive book. I don't think it's all of it, but it's just whatever it is. Manga's been something that we talk about here for a long time, where it's just very enjoyable. And I think those long-standing mangas has been really the pinnacle for that entire medium. Really, I mean, I read some of the sort of stuff, and they're really, really great, really, really great. But I don't know if I would be as interested in manga overall if it wasn't for things like One Piece, Berserk still going on, and then things like Dragon Ball Super to still look forward to. Like, it's the fact that Dragon Ball and Berserk aren't over, and they still having at least somebody who wasn't chosen by some committee or hired, it was passed on to. Like like, that is very very awesome. I think maybe something like that happened with Naruto. I'm sure all that kind of stuff is online, but yeah, One Piece is definitely one of those ones where it's could go one of either ways. It could get normal ending, and everybody is happy and satisfied, or, it could end up like Dragon Ball, Berserk, or anything else. That's the way she goes, man. But God Valley came out 1160, was really great, and then 383 from Berserk. I wasn't a big fan of it because it felt like a weird chapter, and then it just felt like, all right, we kind of understand the pacing and things going. But I think we're gonna get some big stuff from Berserk. I think they probably have a lot of stuff really already done. I think we're gonna get some big like army battles with the Kassan Empire and maybe some, you know, weird upgrade for guns. And then we're gonna get like the final stuff at some point, which would be good. I could see this ending at 400. I think that they probably see like, okay, how can we get this done within this time frame? 400 is a good stopping point. I think I would be surprised if we hit chapter 400 of Berserk and we own at the like Guts is already facing I forget like what his name Griffin. Griffin. Yeah, which is insane. One Piece though, I mean, that One Piece is being used as a revolutionary symbol on our world, like just there. I think that stands enough. I mean, I stand with those people. That means enough. That's insane. So we're gonna keep covering One Piece and Berserk and all these mangas for as long as we can because I love them. There's definitely gonna be a time where we're not gonna be covering them, and that's gonna be something to look back on. That's gonna be something to be, you know, very cognizant of. I think. I think with Dragon Ball, with Akira Toriyama ending, that's definitely something that I take for granted because when he was alive, it definitely seemed like there was gonna be no more Dragon Ball ever. GT, people thought that was the end. Super, I thought that was the end. And let's say it, Super has some of the most banging moments in Dragon Ball we've ever had. One of Frieza's this year, we still got Black Frieza coming up. Share My Power, everybody knows is great. Yeah, there's some sneakers in the middle of it. Or the original guy, it's great. Last and final note, The Long Walk movie. I mean, we've been talking about this one for ages, ages. We've been talking about this one for a long time. For an adaptation, for a Stephen King adaptation, this is like an 11 out of 10. I mean, you couldn't do everything else more perfect. I mean, the acting, like, just phenomenal. The minor changes, because not everything obviously translates from adaptations, but there were things that were changed that didn't necessarily have to be, and they were just obviously changed just for, I think, vibe. For example, the book is more set in, like, Maine's forests, while the movie is set in the weird, like, almost apocalyptic type Midwest type of deal, which is cool. In the movie, there's a lot bigger sense on, like, the political sense of the world. It definitely feels a lot more totalitarian in the movie than you kinda get in the book. And then the movie centers heavily on the other characters, which is insane. Centers heavily on the characters that have been walking with Ray Garrity in the book. You get a good amount of time with them, and I think that's really awesome. The movie changed the count of kids, though, which I think didn't need to be done. I think that they could have specifically just still had the what original 100, and then we didn't need to even see or hear all of them. Like, I think what could have happened is during the first night when Ray falls asleep, we hear gunshots in the middle of his dreaming, and then he wakes up in the dream. Like, the gunshots don't wake him up. his friend Pete. That's what I think would have been better. Obviously, I don't think it's the first night, maybe the second night, is when they go up the hill. That's what I think should have been done, but I'm gonna see the movie again. That's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be one of those movies that I watch the director's commentary on and all that kind of shit. I would love that. The changes for it were definitely not, like, needed to be an improvement, but they definitely were, just part of it, and I don't mind them. They even changed, how the endings are, which is, I think, pretty beneficial because now it's like you have more incentive to read the original source material, which is awesome. So, before I even spoil any more of The Long Walk, I definitely think you should go watch the movie and then go read it, obviously, because 'cause they're both great experiences, but they're really, really great. Anyway, he's has been the Game Librarian podcast, and it's been really great doing this, meeting up every Monday. Hopefully, we'll have a lot more games to talk about. So songs has been taking so long. I wanna get more time in some of the games that come out this year, so we can talk about them before the Game Awards and then all that kind of stuff, but it is what it is, time keeps going. Anyway